Namaskar, welcome back friends. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to evaluate the strength of a planet in a horoscope. We're going to explore the exaltation and debilitation sign of a planet. We're going to explore the friendship between the planets and additional factors such as Sandhi, which is a planet who's just transitioning a sign, gaṇḍānta. We're going to explore combustion and also planetary wars. This is step 5 in learning how to read a horoscope. After evaluating the strength of the planet based on the house that he is in, whether he's benefic or malefic, and whether he's placed in a Kendra, Trikona or Upachaya, we have to consider the sign placement of a planet. Every planet has a sign of exaltation, a sign of debilitation, and a own sign. Planets in their sign of exaltation will give 100% of their auspicious results. Planets in their sign of debilitation will give the least auspicious results. Planets in their own sign will give about 50% of their auspicious results. If a planet is not exalted, not in his own sign, and not debilitated, we have to consider how does this planet feel about the lord of the sign or house that he is placed in. What is the relationship of that planet to the lord of the house? And here we have to consider if a planet is in a friendly relationship, in a neutral relationship, or in an inimical relationship. First, let's consider their exaltation and debilitation. The sun is exalted in Aries, debilitated in Libra, and of course in its own sign in Leo. The sun likes Aries because Aries is connected to the mountains and to the hills. Aries is connected to being the first, being slightly above everyone else. And of course, the sun, being the king, likes that position. There's a great vantage point of being on top of the hills, on top of the mountains. The sun likes to be the first. The sun likes to be in the center. Aries in the Kala Purusha is also connected to the sunrise. Therefore, the sun, of course, feels exalted during this moment of sunrise. And Libra is the sign opposite of Aries. Libra is a sign of other people. It is a sign of democracy. Of course, the king, he feels debilitated if he is in a democratic society where everyone is equal. Because in front of the king himself does not consider himself to be equal of everyone. He's the lawmaker. He reigns supreme. Libra is also the natural sign of the sunset, and therefore the sun does not favor the sign as much as it does the others. Moon is exalted in Taurus, debilitated in Scorpio, and of course in its own sign in Cancer. The moon loves Taurus because Taurus is a very natural environment. It is farms and agriculture connected to the cow and the bull. It is natural produce, free of pesticides and chemicals. It is ahimsa, non-violent, organic dairy, which according to Ayurveda is very good for nourishment and for our brain. So many diseases in Ayurveda can be cured through milk products, even just through spending time with cows. And therefore the mind, our moon, rejoices in Taurus. Have you ever been out in the farms, in rural places, maybe rural India, with happy cows and happy people, eating home-cooked food with love? It just illuminates our mind with joy, and therefore the moon is exalted in Taurus. The moon is debilitated in Scorpio because Scorpio, it is the anus of the zodiac. It is connected to a Scorpio who stinks. It is poisonous. It is water that is fixed, that has become toxic. Of course, our moon doesn't like to be in that place. Scorpio is a place of transformation that is always changing. The mind doesn't like it, and therefore the moon feels debilitated in Scorpio. The moon in Scorpio, of course, it can make great psychologists, it can make great thinkers. It makes people who have seen the darker side of humanity. They don't shy away from that. It makes our spiritual warrior. While the moon in Taurus, it makes a person, it gives a bright mind, it gives comfort, it gives clarity and peace. Then we have Mars. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Capricorn, among all signs, is the graveyard. It is a very harsh place. It is the place of discipline, of ambition. There's a lack of emotions in Capricorn. And Mars, he loves that because he's the warrior on the battlefield. He can't get too emotional. He gets debilitated in Cancer, which is just right opposite. And the warrior, he cannot get overwhelmed by his feelings. Have you ever heard of the classic, the Bhagavad Gita? In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, he was bewildered by his emotions. And he was about to give up fighting the greatest battle in history. He was about to give up his duty as a warrior who was meant to protect because he was overwhelmed with emotions. So also Mars and Capricorn, it can make our inner warrior overwhelmed with emotions. It can sometimes give hot blood. It can give unnecessary anger. Mercury, he has a very special position. He's the only planet that is exalted in his own sign. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. He is the prince who's completely independent. He feels exalted just by himself. He does not want anyone else. Mercury is debilitated in Pisces. Pisces is the sign that is open like an ocean. It is unconditional love. And Mercury, who is our significator for precision, for organization, for contracts, he doesn't like to be in Pisces, which is so unbound and spontaneous and imaginative. Mercury, he doesn't like that. Mercury in Virgo, he's extremely precise. He just says a few words which have hundreds of meanings. But Mercury in Pisces, he needs to say so much just to say a little. So Mercury in Pisces is excellent for a person who does creative writing or a poet. Then we can consider Jupiter. Jupiter, he behaves opposite to Mars. He's exalted in Cancer because he's the teacher and the priest. Of course, he's exalted in the heart, the emotional heart of Cancer. He's debilitated in Capricorn because the priest, he usually tries to keep himself very clean, and now he's placed in the battlefield. The own sign of Jupiter, of course, we have Sagittarius and Pisces. Venus behaves opposite to Mercury. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Unconditional love, it is the greatest love out there. She's debilitated in Virgo because we cannot confine love. We cannot put love into boxes. That is Venus in Virgo. Sometimes Venus in Pisces can be very bad for relationships because the person has too many expectations, too high ideals. They have too much love to give, which can cause a problem as well. Or in Venus in Virgo sometimes can be great. Sometimes it can give one relationship, but one that is really good. And often in the realm of relationships, one good one is better than three good ones, right? And then we have Saturn. So Saturn, he behaves opposite to the Sun. He is exalted in Libra because he is the masses. The masses are exalted in democracy. And he's debilitated in Aries. They're debilitated in monarchy. Saturn in Aries, he becomes a bit lazy. He can create a lot of difficulty. Saturn in Aries indicates suppression of our individuality because Aries is our self. It is us becoming a distinct individual, while Saturn indicates some level of distortion and limitations in that regard. Saturn in Aries can also give birth to amazing things. Many hip-hop artists have Saturn in Aries, and they give birth to an amazing music culture. At the same time, what was the cost? The cost was a severe limitation and suppression of individuality by others. And we can see that a lot in hip-hop culture, isn't it? And what about the nodes? Rahu is exalted in Taurus and Gemini. Gemini is his Boga exaltation. Its particular gives Rahu a lot of enjoyment. Gemini is connected to casinos, to play. Taurus is the Ayur exaltation, that it's connected to a long life. Opposite to that, we have Sagittarius and Scorpio. So Rahu, he feels debilitated in Sagittarius. You put Rahu, the gangster, in the guru's ashram, it might not go so well. His own sign is Aquarius, and Rahu has his office in Virgo. So Rahu in Virgo also does exceptionally well. Ketu, he behaves opposite to Rahu. He is exalted in Sagittarius and Scorpio. Put the monk to the guru's ashram. Excellent. He's debilitated in Gemini and Taurus. The monk, he does not visit the brothel, which is situated in Gemini. His own sign is Scorpio, and some people also use Leo. Ketu does very well in Leo. His office is in Pisces, so Ketu here also gives very excellent results. Let me next tell you about planetary friendships. What happens if a planet is not exalted, not in his own sign, not debilitated? We have to look at the relationship of this planet to the Lord of the house that he is placed in. The Sun is friends with the Moon, Mars, and Jupiter. The Sun is neutral to Mercury and inimical to Venus and Saturn. So if the Sun is placed in a sign of the Moon, such as Cancer, if the Sun is placed into a sign of Mars, such as Scorpio, Aries, the Sun is exalted, or the sign of Sagittarius or Pisces, the Sun will be situated in the sign of a friend, and according to Parashara will give 25% of its auspicious results. If the Sun is placed in the sign of Mercury, the Sun is placed in a neutral, and there, according to Parashara, the Sun will only give 12.5% of its auspicious results, while the Sun does not perform too well in the sign of Venus or Saturn, because here the Sun is in the sign of an enemy, and according to Parashara gives less than 12.5% of its good results. Then we have the Moon. The Moon is in the sign of a friend if it is in the sign of the Sun or Mercury. So the Moon does very well in Leo, in Gemini, or in Pisces. The Moon is neutral to all the other planets. The Moon is neutral to Jupiter, to Mars, to Saturn, and to Venus. The Moon has no enemies. Mars is in a friendly sign, is friends with the Sun, Jupiter, and the Moon, while it is neutral to Saturn and Venus, but feels inimical to Mercury. So if Mars is placed in the sign of Mercury, if he's placed in Gemini or in Virgo, he's situated in the sign of an enemy. Just think of Mars. Mars is that bully in the class. And the bully, he doesn't like Mercury. Mars, he got all the strength, he got all the power, he is serious, he is ready to accomplish the tasks. While Mercury, he's that prince who has all the resources, he doesn't have to work for them, he's just making jokes and having fun. There's a natural enmity between Mars and Mercury. Well, of course, the Mars befriends the Sun, Jupiter, the Moon, who are all part of the royal cabinet. Venus and Saturn, they are part of a different camp. We often differentiate between planets who are in the Deva camp, that is the Sun, the Moon, Jupiter and Mars. Some take Ketu, and the Asura camp, which is Mercury, Venus, Saturn, and Rahu. And we often see that planets from these camps, they don't mingle so much with each other. We had an exception previously. The Moon befriended Mercury, who's part of the Asura camp. Because Mercury is the prince, the Moon, she's the queen. Of course the queen loves the prince, and of course the queen loves the king, the Sun. The Sun was of course befriending the Deva camp, being a Deva himself, and being the king, the father, sometimes has to be a little bit strict with the Sun. Therefore, the Sun was neutral to Mercury. Continuing with this, we have Mercury. Mercury, he befriends Venus and the Sun. Mercury is the prince, of course. He's very affectionate towards his father, because one day he's going to be able to inherit the throne. Mercury can associate with Venus. They're both part of the Asura camp. Mercury is neutral to Saturn and to Mars and to Jupiter, but is inimical to the Moon, like the child who does not always like to listen to his mother. It is interesting that these relationships, they're not purely a reciprocation. As such, Mars is inimical to Mercury, but Mercury does not share that same enmity with Mars. Jupiter, he's friends with the Sun, the Moon, and Mars. He is neutral to Venus and Saturn, but Jupiter is friends with the Sun, Moon, and Mars. He's neutral to Saturn, but feels inimical towards Venus. Because both Jupiter and Venus are gurus, but Jupiter, he's the Deva guru, while Venus, he is the Asura guru. Next we have Venus. Venus is friendly to Mercury and Saturn, neutral to Mars and Jupiter, but inimical towards the Moon. Last, Saturn befriends Mercury and Venus. He is neutral to Jupiter and he is inimical to the Sun, Mars and the Moon. Have a look in your horoscope. How many planets are exalted? Can you relate to the significations of these planets, particularly if they are also placed in Kendra or Kona? How many planets are debilitated? Do you feel a feeling of limitation or burden related to these planets? How many planets are in the sign of a friend, neutral or enemy? There are many additional factors that can further alter how this planet will manifest in your life. Let's explore 3 additional techniques. The first one is called Sandhi, and there is a variation of Sandhi which we call gaṇḍānta. Sandhi means transition, like the shift from day to night. We call it Sandhi. Planets who are between 0 and 1 degree of a sign, or between 29 to 30 degrees of a sign, who are just transitioning from one sign to the next, lose some of their strength and can become problematic. They can cause problems related to their significations. For example, if Venus is at more than 29 degrees of a sign, there can be a problem in relation to relationships. There can be a problem in relation to our sexual health, our immune system, our kidneys, our wife, our loved ones, our sister, or a problem related to all the houses that Venus lords in our horoscope. The same would apply to any other planet. There's a variation of Sandhi, we call it gaṇḍānta. gaṇḍānta, they're like evil knots, the evil places in the zodiac. And those are the 3 degrees and 20 minutes in the beginning of every fire sign and at the end of every water sign, such as the first 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Aries, the last 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Cancer, the first 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Leo, the last 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Scorpio, the first 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Sagittarius, and the last 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Pisces. This transition from a watery sign into a fire sign, it is like coming out of a sauna and jumping into an ice bath. It is not very pleasant. So planets that are situated in these gaṇḍānta points of the zodiacs, they can also struggle to manifest their significations. Another important factor that can alter the expression of the planet is called gaṇḍānta, or combustion. Any planet that comes too close to the sun can become combust. If you're using Deva Guru to draw your horoscope, you will see on the very bottom of the software, next to the name of the planet, a fire symbol telling you that this planet is combust. To make it simple, most planets get combust at about 13 to 17 degrees of distance towards the sun. Combustion increases exponentially. So a planet that is 12 degrees combust will not be as affected as a planet that is combust by 4 degrees or by 1 degree. The reason behind combustion is that any planet that moves too close to the sun, his light cannot reach this earth distinguishably from the light of the sun. And therefore, his signification then merge into the sun. Combustion is mostly considered negative, but there is a positive side to it too. Often we internalize the qualities of the planet. Because they're close to the sun, they're close to ourselves. So if Venus becomes combust, then often a person will be very diplomatic. They have an eye for detail. They have great artistic expression. But what happens is that the external significations of a planet, they will become burned, they will become dried up. So in the case of Venus, that could indicate a difficulty to find satisfaction in relationships. If it is Mercury, a person will be very skillful, but it could dry up the external signification of Mercury, which are friends. If Mars becomes combust, it can harm our relationships or the health of our siblings by making us very ambitious. Another factor that can alter the expression of a planet is called the Graha Yuddha, or planetary war. If two elementary planets come too close to each other, particularly if they're within 1 degree, they enter a war. In general, the planet with the higher degree will become the winner and take the strength of the planet with the lower degree, of the loser. Elementary planets are Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. Planets don't enter a war with the sun. The sun combusts. Which planet can win against the sun? This giant in the sky. Also, planets don't enter a fight with the moon, again because of the size of the moon, and also because the moon is the mother, she doesn't fight. Rahu and Ketu also do not enter a planetary war. The nodes, they eclipse. When a benefic planet loses a planetary war, he loses his strength and he cannot add as many beneficial effects to the horoscope. If a malefic planet loses a planetary war, he will get angry and he can cause great harm and damage to whichever part of the horoscope he is placed in, and as well whichever houses he rules can cause problems. Do you have any planets in your horoscope that are Sandhi, that are gaṇḍānta, combust, or losing a planetary war? Can you relate to challenges that you're experiencing in relationship to those planets? In our next session, we will study planetary yogas. Any planet who shares the same sign with any other planet will enter yoga. Yoga means union, it also means combination, and that will alter its results. It is different if Saturn is alone in a sign, or if he's conjoined with Jupiter, if he's conjoined with Mars, with Rahu and Ketu. This is one of the last pieces that you will have to learn to start unraveling and understanding your own horoscope, to learn about the karma that you were born with.